What's up, heroes, and welcome to the Producer Life Podcast, episode 94. Before we get started with today's guest, I wanted to let you know that I've got my first track of 2022 dropping this Friday, and I couldn't be more excited. It's a really different sound for me. It's ragey, it's angry, and it's this electro house piece, but when you hear the lyrics, I'm pretty sure you're going to agree with the outrage. Make sure you're following me on Spotify as House Ninja, that's just 2 words on Spotify, so you'll be one of the first ones to hear about it. And now, on to our guest. Today we're talking with Bruce Zalcer from Panama. Bruce is a multi-instrumentalist who began with music in his teens playing in rock bands and DJing. After school, he largely left the scene and moved on to a more conventional life selling insurance and raising a family for many years until 2018 when he decided to return to the music scene. Since then, Bruce's unique approach to techno incorporating synthesizers, drum machines, and sounds sampled from daily life has been making waves in the techno world. He's released 12 tracks, including his Lifeblood EP, and already has tracks signed with some of the biggest labels in the industry, including Terminal M, 1605, and Codex Recordings. And his first live performance in 20 years was in Amsterdam for ADE. Finally, while there isn't a huge techno following in Panama, he's created Dialectic Live, which is an organization that is dedicated to growing that movement in that country. In this conversation, Bruce and I talk about how his metal background influenced his music, how he's leveled up his music production so quickly, his process for making a techno track, how he uses modular gear, and a whole lot more. But first, cue the intro music. All right, Bruce, welcome to the Producer Life Podcast.
Thanks a lot, Brian. Good to be here.
It's going to be a good conversation. I'm excited to have an artist from Panama. You're the first one that we've had from down there. How's the weather down there right now?
Well, right now we're it's warm. It's always warm, and we're starting right now our dry season, which is the best season of the year. It's dry and it's windy. It's not as humid as the rest of the year.
So you've got 2 seasons. You've got warm and dry or warm and wet?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so how did you grow up in Panama, and where did your background in music originally start?
Yeah. Yes, I was born here in Panama, and I guess I was always listening to music in my mother's car. We were like going places and stuff like that. And I started piano lessons. I think I was maybe 5-6 years old, and that's where I started with learning music, learning piano, learning music theory, and then a couple of years later, I was introduced to like Guns N' Roses and Metallica and stuff like that, and I really got a strong fascination with hard rock and heavy metal, and wanted to learn guitar. And so a couple of years later, I picked up the guitar and bass, and so it's been I've been a musician my whole life. You know, it's been always a part of my life, music.
Okay, awesome. I understand you also play the mandolin.
Yes, I'm not an expert at it. I've played it. I've had the instrument, and I can play it. Yes.
Okay, awesome. So now, when you were growing up, were you in any bands, or was this more of just you took lessons and were interested in it, or did you do any performing when you were younger?
Yeah, I was in a band. When I was relatively young, I was 12, 13 years old. Most of all the band members were older than me. I think most of them were above 18. So I wanted to start playing in bars and clubs, and that got a little bit complicated for me. I was 13 years old, so I think I played in a bar. I played in a couple of private parties, and then I played like in a bar in a public night, and my parents went to the bar, and but I think that was like the last time my parents were really happy with me going to bars at 13 to perform.
Okay, so your budding career got squashed by your parents at that point.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Who knows? If that hadn't happened, you might have been a heavy metal hair rocker.
Maybe, probably, but or maybe I would have forgotten about music. Who knows? Everything happens the way it's supposed to happen.
Okay, so that was kind of your high school years, and then after high school, where'd you go? What happened next?
Okay, so when I graduated high school, I became very interested in electronic music, and the electronic music scene was starting to erupt here in Panama, and started going a lot to parties, and I started DJing. But I went to university at that time in the United States, and I had all my DJ gear and was DJing in my room and a couple of things. But I really lost interest at that time, and I was more focused on the university and what was going on there. And I guess that I had, in a way, forgotten about music as a career or as something that I could do professionally. So I was more, playing guitar once in a while, or playing guitar during sometimes, and then DJing, and then bass. So I was more whatever felt good at that time. So I just kept it as a hobby, and I was focusing more on what I was going to do for work or for my professional life in general. So I guess that the education that I had, and whatever at that time, music, at least my parents, who were very influential, I guess, when I was younger, the music was not something that seemed like a plausible career. And I think that made a lot of sort of sense, because at that time, a lot of things were limited. The internet obviously wasn't there like it is today. We're talking almost 20 years ago. And so it was very hard for a Panamanian guy to be, in music. And so I guess that I forgot about that. And
Okay.
I started working.
Okay. And so you were in the States for your college years, and then you went back to Panama when you started working?
Yeah, I went to school in Philadelphia. I graduated in 2004, and then a couple of weeks later, I was in Panama. My family owns an insurance brokerage firm, or my father. So I started working with him right away, and that was supposed to be my path, or my career, which I still do that until today. I'm the executive vice president of an insurance brokerage firm.
Okay. Well, I can certainly see how, since that's kind of a family business and tradition, there would be a lot of inertia to, bring you back into the fold after your college years, and maybe not want you to jump out into a music career, for example.
Yes, yeah, and there were a couple of things that caught my attention that I wanted to do professionally. One was rock and roll, and the other one was play baseball, and both of them weren't seen as a very I don't know. I don't want to say good. I mean something that could materialize. They weren't seen as something very probable. So I was, more or less guided towards the family business. Yeah. And
Okay.
more than it's my father's business, which is even more personal, I think. So, yeah.
Okay. So that was 2004. So you spent 14 years in the insurance business. Were you still listening to electronic music, still playing keyboard and guitar a little bit?
Mostly I was playing guitar and bass. I was really focused more on hard rock, heavy metal, and I also like jam bands a lot, like the Grateful Dead and Fish. So I played. It depends really on the time period. let's say maybe for a while I play bass, other time I play guitar, and so there wasn't anything electronic really. In the year 2017, I went through a period of soul searching, and I realized that I needed to do something else. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do, or what was, if I wanted to study something, another career, and I was open to a lot of things that I really wasn't open before to doing, and I started listening to music that I had listened before my rock and roll years, some like early hip hop or stuff like that. And I had listened to more like electronic trap music and stuff like that, and I really started liking it. And I said that I wanted to make that type of music, so I started producing trap and sort of like loungy music. But I was always going more in my productions towards traditional electronic music, or European style electronic music. And then one day I was, going through YouTube and like watching videos, and I saw Charlotte David like playing techno, and I'm like, I wanna do that. I really wanted to do that, and I started to produce techno. Before, when I started producing, I wanted to make music for other people. It was hard for me to show my face as a music producer because I identified myself as an insurance broker. So it was like another identity, and going from a conservative type career where or that's at least the image that I had, that then going into music was like a big jump. So it was, for me, it was progressive. First I was using another name, and I wanted to make music, like I said, music for other people to sing and stuff like that. And then got to a point where I said, I'm going to make my own music. I'm going to use my name. I'm going to show my face. And that's when really I became really identified with what I was doing. When I put my face into it, when I put my name, and I think that's when my music career started to pick up.
Interesting. So you originally didn't share a lot of personal detail, because now when I look at your Instagram or your Facebook, I mean, you've got pictures of your family and your daughter, and you talk directly to people in the microphone. I know you did something about mental health recently. You're very personable on there. How did you sort of make that adjustment from, hey, I'm going to be sort of an anonymous producer, to I'm going to share who I really am?
I started becoming more comfortable with the idea of me being of what I was doing, of being a musician, of identifying myself as Bruce, and not as an insurance broker, or as a music producer, or as a father, or as a husband. And Bruce can do whatever he feels like doing, and I don't need to put labels on myself. And it was a process, but when I realized that, then I got comfortable with it, and I guess I started to reconnect with who I was when I was younger. More outgoing, more extroverted, and just doing what felt good. And there's a misconception that doing what feels good is doing, debauchery or extreme pleasures or stuff like that. And I think that shouldn't be that way. There's no need to sacrifice what we want for a supposedly higher goal. There's this romantic idea that we need to sacrifice ourselves in order to like a self, and I think that's really, we don't need to do that. We can be who we are, and we can do what feels good, as long as we don't harm other people, and I started to identify with that a lot, with that, and I started to put it in practice. So it was a process.
Okay. But you gradually started being, I guess, more authentic on social media, and that was when you really started to see things take off.
Yes, I guess that more, I wouldn't say that I wasn't authentic before, but I wasn't I was using another, like even when you use like a suit, like for me, like when I was using my initials and not my full name. So, you can always, it's easier to be on the back, not to be, on the forefront. So I would say that that putting my name there and just it made me at least made I don't know what if it made me be if it made me be more real, but it made me identify myself more with what I was doing. I guess more responsible, I guess, of what I was doing.
Okay. So, so, and I'm kind of fascinated with this because it's sort of where I am in terms of being a producer, because I'm an anonymous producer. I go by House Ninja. I wear a mask when I'm out in public, and so, I don't share a lot of personal details for various reasons. So I'm kind of interested in how your opening up really positively impacted your career here. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
thank you for sharing that.
yes. If I had to summarize, I would say like putting my name in something makes me more responsible if I want to give a good name for doing it in a way for doing it like at least you know when I put myself out when I try to be who I am in front of everyone. So I guess the same thing translated here.
Is it kind of, you feel, you're attaching your name and your face to it, so it makes you more, I guess responsible is the best word. That is who you are, and so you want to do the best that you can. Is that kind of the idea?
In a way, and in another way, it's I guess that putting my name just makes the whole thing about who I am. I mean, in a way that Bruce Zalcer, for example, that's my full name. I am a husband. I'm a father. I'm this and that. So it encompasses my identity.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that it was something that I thought of. I guess that's more of what I felt when it happened.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, thank you. So who was it you said you stumbled across on YouTube that kind of really that pivotal moment where you said, "Oh, that's what I want to do. I want to make techno."
Yeah, I was seeing Charlotte David, the Belgian. She's like a techno superstar, and more than anything, I was just hearing the techno, like the famous techno kick, and just hitting and bang. It resembled a lot like heavy metal, like that intense pumping sound. And I was searching of what type of music I wanted to make. All my latest productions at that time were more electronic, were more type of like dance music, and so I guess things collided, and that's how it happened.
Yeah, that's interesting. I always thought, in my mind, I always connected sort of the heavy metal style closer to like dubstep, because when you watch people dancing to heavy metal, the headbanging, that's exactly what you see still, at the rail at a dubstep festival, but you don't really do that to techno.
Yeah. I guess that I think that the dubstep, maybe it's faster, it's wilder, but I think that the melodies, also the mix between intensity of the rhythm and then like some melodic breaks in techno can also compare to that type of metal, when like Metallica type of metal, you have like strong rhythms and then like a more melodic like emotive break where there's more type of like maybe a classical music influence, making these melodies and arrangements. So
Okay. Would you say that's the main way your interest, your early experience with heavy metal has influenced your techno, is sort of in the arrangements and the emphasis on melodic elements, or are there other ways that your guitar and metal background have influenced your production now?
um, I guess that I've taken in a lot of times when I'm producing, imagine whatever comes later in the music as if I was playing guitar or bass. And yeah, for example, like I would imagine like the arrangement of again, like the other day I was producing something and I'm like remembering like Metallica's song like Welcome Home like Sanitarium, and I'm like, I want to do that in techno, and it's not something conscious, it's just something that pops up, you know. And but yeah, it has definitely influenced the creation of melodies and arrangements, but mostly the creating melodies in, in techno with that background or with that influence, you know.
Okay. And how did you, you had a classical music background, so you understood chord structures and general arrangements and such. How did you learn the technical aspects of working in a DAW and eventually getting into some modular stuff?
Yeah, I started watching lessons in YouTube, and I realized that I needed feedback. First of all, I wanted to have a structured learning for the DAW, and then I wanted feedback on whatever I was doing. And and so I went to different online platforms and started getting private tutors for learning. First, I learned Logic, and then I learned like all machine and native instruments, and then I learned Ableton. So it was a process of learning the technical aspects of the software, which I think that a lot of people say, I'm going to produce, I'm going to learn Ableton. I'm like, okay, learning Ableton is one thing, or learning how to use a DAW is one thing, but you need to learn how to produce also. It's not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So first I learned how to use the software, and obviously I produce at the same time because you learn by producing. So I learned both things at the same time, but mostly focus on learning the software. And then I looked for the same thing, online tutorials and private tutors to learn how to make techno, how to do certain things. And still until today, sometimes I have lessons with people that we don't know. I don't think you never stop learning, and there's always something new that you can learn. And that's how I did it. That's
Okay.
how I
Were these people that were advertising, "Hey, I've got an online producer school. Come join this, and we've got mentors and such"? Or was this you reached out to a techno artist that you really liked and said, "Hey, can you spend an hour with me and I'll pay you"?
No, initially I really went to like online either schools or platforms that offer the different people who want to do like freestyling or not freestyling, freelancing. Sorry, and I hired a couple of people there, and it went well, and then I've also had lessons with people, with artists I admire. A lot of times they offer the services during the pandemic. A lot of artists started giving private lessons, stuff like that, and that really, I think that was really useful for me.
Okay. So especially for techno, what were some of the key things, sort of the big insights that you had with your tutors about, key elements in techno? What were some of those big aha moments that you took away from your tutors?
Different ways to do the rhythmic part of the tracks, especially the kick and the percussions, which are crucial for any techno track. I would say not only techno, many genres of electronic music. The kick is basic, and we can make or break a track. So having that solid, a solid foundation was something that really, really helped a lot. And something that was really important advice that I get, and I think that's something that's struggled for every producer, from someone who's starting until seasoned producer is learning to not put a lot of things in the track. There's always this impulse to add something, to add as if adding will make better. And I think like in any art, it's not only what you put in, but what you don't put in that can create a good piece of art or a good painting, or sometimes you don't need so many colors. If you put so many colors, then it's not. So it's a balance between learning what to add and learning to stop, or not add anything else.
What advice would you offer a new producer who's trying to decide, all right, well, am I going to throw an extra percussion element in, or I'm going to put in a little arpeggio here? How would you advise them to determine whether or not to keep it or just leave it out?
It's if it sounds good without it, then it's probably better without it. The advice that I can give anybody is to stand up, walk around, give it a day, and see how it sounds, and start working in with the elements that you have inside the track. Sometimes you can automate something, you can add a delay, you can add effects, you can do certain things with the elements that you already have. And if you put something very practical, is try not to add more than one thing every 32 beats.
Only add for techno in particular. Only add one new thing every 32 beats or so.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm guilty of that. I tend to be rather impatient with my tracks. I'm like, I want to do something now. I want something new. And I have trouble going further than like 16 bars, but I do more kind of dance pop type stuff. So
obviously there aren't any set rules. I mean, you have to do what sounds good for each track, but I would say that definitely for somebody who's starting, the less you put, the better, because you need to be very good with what you're putting in. And if you're putting in a lot of stuff, and you're gonna have the experience to put everything together,
Yeah. So when you're building out your arrangement, I've heard, I'm part of a group, the Producer Dojo, and Ilgates, it's mostly bass music, but they teach one way of producing is to kind of build out, an 8 or 16 bar loop of way too many elements. And then you kind of start subtracting elements and then spreading it out once you find that sort of core 8 or 16 bar loop. Where do you begin your tracks?
I begin I've heard that, and some people work like that, but I can't. I work linearly.
Okay.
I start from the beginning. Start from the beginning, and I start building the track. And yeah, sometimes I'll let's say if I'm working on an 8-bar loop, or on 8 bars, for example, not on a loop. I'm working on the thing, and then I put like 3-4 elements while I have an idea, and then I'm like, this is too much for this part of the track. I'll move it for later. But I don't work with that way. I usually start my tracks with the kick, and I start building kick, bass, percussion, and whatever feels good. And
okay. You've mentioned kick multiple times, and obviously that's a critical element for techno and a lot of EDM. Can you give us a few tips for how you build a good techno kick?
It's kind of hard to do it here, but a lot of kicks come with a bass. Try to separate the kick from the rumble, and have them in different channels, so you can tweak everything the way that you can do it. There's ways of cutting frequencies and separating that. I think that's a good way to do it. To always have the kick. There's a relationship in techno, a lot of techno, between like a call answer between the kick and the rumble. and a lot of sample packs will put kick and rumble in the same file or in the same wave or whatever. And I realized that it's better to separate them and so you can process everything separately with the right effects and also with the kick. A lot of people are putting a lot of. I've seen tutorials in YouTube that there's so many things on the kick channel, like compressors and limiters, and then you put something to raise the volume and something to balance it or something. Sometimes like not put a lot of processing in the kick. Find a good sample. That's the key to everything.
Yeah. When I was looking over your Instagram, I noticed you've got lots and lots of gadgets in your studio, lots of keyboards and modular stuff. And can you tell us about your workflow and how you use you're an Ableton, you use Ableton or you use Logic for your production usually?
Mostly Ableton. I have a Logic as well, but mostly Ableton.
Okay. So how do the modular synths play into your production?
Well, it's not only modular. I have other type of synthesizers, and usually, a lot of times what I do is I create samples with my external gear. I'll create. I'm playing around the studio and I start recording, and sometimes when I'm playing around with my gear, I get an idea of what I could use in a song. Then I know when I'm making a song, like, okay, maybe like this thing that we tried out the other day, let's try to use it here. I guess that it depends a lot on the type of track. A lot of the gear that I have, I use for inspiration and just I'm a hands-on guy. I like to touch I'm an instrument type of person, so maybe that comes from the guitars and stuff like that. And I couldn't make the same thing I make with. It's not the same thing, but I couldn't make with a plugin. I couldn't play guitar the way I play the guitar, and I guess that's the same thing for me sometimes with the synthesizers. What I make with a synth, it's kind of hard to replicate. This is a feeling, with plugins. So that's how I use my synths. It depends a lot. I wouldn't say that I make my tracks only with external gear or mostly with external gear. Mostly I use the computer for my tracks.
But you're creating some of the original sounds on the external gear, and then you're sampling them and then using them in your tracks.
Yes, that's with the modular mostly. With the other type of synths, I do use them in the productions.
Okay. For somebody that's looking to buy their first external piece of gear, so a producer that's mostly in the box right now, just working on Ableton and soft synths, do you have a favorite piece of sort of beginner external gear you could recommend?
I think that it really depends on your budget. Like the Moog synthesizers, I think are really, for techno, they're really good synths, but they're kind of pricey, or they can be pricey. I think that Korg makes really good synths, like the Monologue, the Minilog are interesting synths, and basically I would recommend one of those.
Okay. Great. Well, let's talk about your most recent release. You've got a new EP that came out, your Lifeblood EP, which was 2 tracks and a DJ tool. Can you tell us a little bit about Lifeblood and Slave to Desire?
Yeah. Lifeblood, it's a more aggressive track than the tracks that I usually make. I made it a while ago, and I don't know. I guess I was listening to a lot of stronger or heavier music around the middle of last year. I was listening to a lot of raw techno after basically I had been listening to big time techno for a while. I just sort of got a little bit bored, and I was listening to a lot of raw music, and I wanted to make roar type of music, and that's where Lifeblood came. And for Slave to Desire, I was last year when everything was closer, and we moved to like a beach town for a couple of months. And I was just one day it was like a lunch break, and I was sitting in my computer and I was playing with a guitar plugin actually, and I started making a melody and that's where Slave to Desire came from. It's a very different type of track with pianos, and so I like it a lot. I like it a lot. It's a very different EP than what I usually make.
Yeah, it's really good. Lifeblood reminded me, sort of this peak driving techno. Do you know Sam Wolf?
Yes. Yeah.
It reminded me of some of his stuff, sort of similar, dark driving, huge synth sounds. But yeah, it's an awesome EP. So I will definitely link that in there. And then your most recent release, Are We Dreaming? That's your most recent one?
No, Are We Dreaming was before Lifeblood. Was a part of a compilation with Terminal M, which was a very big step for me because Terminal M was one of the top labels in techno, most respected labels. So to be able to release a track there within my first year of having made a release was very big.
That is awesome. Which track is that?
Are We Dreaming?
Are We Dreaming? Okay, and that's done really well on Spotify. That's the most recent one. So how did you get that release with Terminal M?
Well, I sent the tracks and Monica took it. It took a while, but
okay, so you just submitted it and they liked it, and there was no relationship building with them in their Discord channel or anything. It was just, hey, here it is, and they liked it.
I don't think a lot of labels in techno have a Discord channel.
Okay, all right. I've interviewed a lot of different producers across different genres, and I'm struck. Julian Gray had a really good story about how he had his early release on Mousetrap, Dead Mouse's label, and he basically participated in their Discord channel for a couple of years. They picked him up eventually, but it was a matter of kind of hanging out and getting to know the people and getting your name recognized. But obviously, there's multiple different ways to make this work. So that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
You had another really huge success, I think, in October. I was looking at your posts on Facebook, and you said, tomorrow is going to be the first time I'll be playing with an audience in 20 years. It's been a year since my first release in the pandemic, switching the stage to the live stream. Now it's time to play like it's meant to be in front of you. And you went to Amsterdam and played ADE as your first event in 20 years.
Yes.
That is amazing. I mean, I think a lot of artists start off at little, corner bars and clubs, but your first gig in 20 years was an international event. How did that happen?
Well, I've released a lot with the labels that are part of a group called IMT. With IMT, with Codex, with Set About, other labels that are part of that group, and I was on a trip to Europe. I had to go to Europe for something, and they offered, like, you're gonna be in Europe, you wanna come play? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so it happened, and it was really awesome. It was a great experience. It wasn't the festival or the conference wasn't like every year. It wasn't that many people there because it was the pandemic year and they had certain restriction. But it was really, really a great experience to meet a lot of people and to play there. It was huge.
Did you, out of curiosity, did they find out that you were going to be in the area because of, like, you posted something on Instagram, hey, I'm going to Europe next week? Or was it you reached out to them and said, hey, I'm going to be in the area, I'd love to perform? Or did they reach out to you?
No, no, none of the former. I was gonna meet with some. I was gonna meet somebody who. I was going to Europe, and we are gonna meet in Spain just to hang out, and so they knew that I was gonna be there.
Okay. All right. So you got to know the people that these are folks from record labels there, and you were going out there to meet them anyway, and this was just an opportunity to perform.
Well, I was going to go to Europe. I was going to go to Spain for other things, and I was going to meet them. Like we've met through the internet, so I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be there. Like let's meet. So yeah, they knew I was going to be there. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Now, obviously, you've got. It looks like you've got a dozen plus releases now, which is phenomenal for just having gotten started back in 2017. You've also branched out a little bit into film scoring, I understand. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, no, that was before Techno. I somebody that a friend of my sister-in-law is making movies, and I guess that I don't know how we got connected. And she said that she needed some music for an independent film, a film that she was making, and I made a couple of tracks for that, which was really a great experience.
Yeah, that's neat. So that was Baby. Now that was out in 2019. So I guess it was in production a couple years before that.
No, I think that the film was already done, and she was lacking a couple, or she was using some tracks that she didn't like. So I had to adapt to the scenes. The scenes were already made. They were already dancing and everything. So I had to make the music to fit what was happening in the film. So it's not that they were dancing to my music. So it was really interesting. I guess that was when after I finished that, then I started making techno exclusively.
Okay. What was your approach looking at, people dancing on a screen and then trying to figure out what the music should sound like? Did you pull out a guitar and just kind of play around with it until you found chords you liked? Or did you use a keyboard, or how did you approach creating that original music for a existing movie?
I guess that I was mostly was what felt like I was listening to the music that they had before. I realized the speed, the BPM, and I started working with that, and it fit. It fit. One of them was like a dancing scene. The other was more of like a regular like movie scene. So I mean, this didn't have to be exact, like dancing, like the.
It's not a music video.
It's not like that. It's not that. Well, like you see something maybe on a Scent of a Woman, like that they're dancing to like moving exactly to whatever the band is playing. It's more of like a. But obviously, it has to be something that makes sense. It can't be like they're dancing salsa and then you're gonna create like a hip hop track.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that certainly sounded like a neat experience. Do you see yourself doing any more scoring for movies? Is that something
I love to. It's I've taken. I think it's interesting to see how the music and the visuals complement each other. And I guess that when we watch a movie, we take a lot of the things for granted. And I took a course on that once on creating sounds for music, but it's not only music; it's sounds for film or for TV. Because a lot of what we hear, when we hear a dinosaur, we're not sampling dinosaurs. You have to create, or a lot of things, helicopters or whatever. All of those things are just created, or before, modern technology, you have to create them with household items sometimes. It's very, very interesting, and music gives sense to a lot of movies. The musical part of it can but we remember music from famous movies, and from movies, people sing them. So music is just it's part of the film.
Yeah. And there's also a lot of money in sync licensing too.
Yes,
So
but I think that I mean, it's very hard to. Obviously, there's music. There may be money in a lot of things, but it's if the advice that I would, unless you're doing this, 24/7, and even if you are, but if you want to have a career in something, like if you want to be a DJ, a techno DJ, and a producer, you should probably focus on that.
yeah.
Because if you're gonna be making music for film or TV, you have to be. It's a business, so you have to be in touch with the supervisors. You have to know people, and you have to do this and that. You have to work maybe with Los Angeles and New York. While if you're doing techno, you have to work with other things. So and think creatively, we're limited. It's not like buying a product and selling it. It's only you. So I would really advise people who are focusing to do that. To try to do that exclusively. And
Yeah.
if you make a song and they want to take it in a movie, that's great. But I think it's
It's hard to divide your attention between being a producer, DJ, and making film scores.
Yeah, because for being a producer and a DJ, it's a career. Both just like managing social media and stuff like that. It's all part of being a musician nowadays. It's not separate from it. So it's not only sitting in the studio and making music. You need to promote yourself. You need to make relationships. You need to go and play somewhere else. Or you need to travel, and you need to do all these things that are part of what you want to do. If you want to sit down in a studio and make music, different type of music, and sell your music, and there's people who do that, and that's another career. But to let's say like I want to be a professional techno DJ and producer, and I'm also going to be making music also for films, and I'm also going to be producing for other people and stuff like that, then I guess it can get kind of complicated.
Yeah. How do you, so you've got multiple careers and you've got a family, you work, you're one of the principals at the insurance agency. You've got a family, a wife, and at least one child, it looks like online. You're a DJ, you produce music. How do you manage all that?
Well, it's a question of scheduling and having honest conversations with the people around me. I guess when I'm doing insurance, like when I wake up and I go to the office, I'm doing that. I have a computer that I use for music production, and I made it. I said to myself that I wasn't going to take that to the office. I don't take that to the office because I don't want to mix things. Sometimes I'll have a meeting or something and try to take it during my lunch hour. And sometimes, I'll take a meeting or something. But when I get home, I make music. And I establish certain hours that I would do that. And with my family, then it's a point of having conversations and making agreements with, I say mostly with my wife, and it's to be, this time is for the family, this time I can do music, or this time sometimes I'll do a little bit of both because my studio is at home, so I have to, get up and help with something and stuff like that. And sometimes, sacrifice certain things. Like we used to watch TV after dinner, and sometimes I can't do that. I'll focus on if I need to finish something, a track or whatever. I'll say like tonight I can't do that, and it's fine. We all make our own plans, but I guess that it's just having the time to pay attention to everything, and I guess that a lot of times, and it's. We would say like if I don't dedicate so much and so much time, then I'm not going to be able to do it. And then I feel, or the person feels like, I'm not giving enough time, and then you start like blaming other people for not being able to do your own thing, your thing. But it's really that it's just like an excuse not to do the thing. If I'm like, I would say, just because I have a family, like I can make music, my family doesn't allow me to make music, and I think it's just a lot of times it's just things that we say to ourselves because we're not being able to do what we want because of something else, and we blame the easy culprits, like work or family, and I need to quit work and I need to do this. And I realize that if I have the right mindset, I can do all the things. um, I can do the three things. I can work and I can have my family, or I can do my 9 to 5. I can have my family, and I can also be a DJ and a producer.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that's great. It seems to be working really well for you. Now, you also, on top of that, you've got, I was looking on Instagram, and you've got the Dialectic Live, a techno movement in Panama. Can you give us a little bit about that?
Yes. When I wanted to start playing, people used to tell me, you can't play techno in Panama. You're not gonna be able to play techno. People don't like techno, and we don't want you to play and whatever. So I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna start making my own parties. And I believe that techno is something that could be played. If it's played in Colombia and it's very popular, and other Latin American countries, why not in Panama?
Mm-hmm.
And so we started with that in November, and so far we've got a good reception from the public. I like a very good party in late November, mid-November, with Juliet Fox from Germany, based out of Germany, and then we had Claudia Gaulas also from Germany. On December 31st, we had a really good party, and now we have another party this Friday with Oscar L from Spain. So basically that.
Okay, so you're taking on the role of an event promoter, and are you hiring these DJs to come to the parties and then managing all that as well, or how are you?
Yeah.
What's your role there?
Well, I'm the owner of the company. So I organize. I have a team, but I bring the DJs. I find the DJs. I hire them, and through their agencies, and I find a place here to make the party, and we try to make the party.
Awesome. Okay, so you are building the techno scene in Panama.
Trying to, yes.
Okay. Well, it looks like it's going well. It's interesting because my very first guest on the Producer Life podcast, this was 18 months ago, was Lauren Hardy, who started Bass Night Orlando. His big thing is bass music. There was no bass scene in Orlando, Florida, and he worked at it took him like 3 or 4 years, but he has built it into a weekly event, and he's got, the last time I went to one, he had 300 people showing up on a Monday night.
Wow.
To listen to bass music. I mean, it's wow. Insane. He's got a huge following, and he also DJs for it and then brings in the artists. And anyway, so I'll have to send you a link to that episode. You might be interested in hearing it, but he's done exactly what you're trying to do, just with a different genre and different place.
Wow, that's really interesting, and it's motivating, I guess.
Yeah, it absolutely can work. He's an example of building the scene that he wants for the music he loves. So very cool, and I wish you good luck. So as a producer, and I guess also talking about Dialectic Live, what's next this year? What are you guys doing in 2022?
Well, as a producer, I have an EP coming out this Friday with it's out on Codex. It's a techno label. It's a 2-track EP, and there's some interesting things coming up in the year. I really can't announce them yet, but some interesting projects. And for Dialectic, we're gonna do different type of parties. We're gonna do parties to promote like a local scene with local DJs. And we're gonna do more like a regional parties with sort of like regional DJs that are close in the area, maybe trying to to also bring Latin American DJs to Panama and have Panamanian DJs go to other Latin American countries, and then our big events, which are going to be not as often, but hopefully once a month with a big name international DJ. Could have like a big event here in Panama, and hopefully eventually export it. We're making connections with a lot of Latin American colleagues and Europeans, and trying to, and also in the United States, and trying to maybe expand internationally. But that's something for the future.
Okay. Well, that's phenomenal. And what is the name of the EP that's coming out on Friday, January 21st?
The Hunt.
The Hunt. Okay. I will link that. This episode will come out after that. So, but it will be linked in the show notes, and definitely looking forward to giving that a listen.
Perfect. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate, taking the time to interview me, and obviously taking me into account for this.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. Where can people find you online, Bruce?
Well, right now, building my website, but Instagram is the best platform. Bruce Zalcer Music is my Instagram, and my music is in all major platforms for streaming and for downloading, and you can get it in iTunes and Beatport. If you want, like, the original DJ tracks will be in Beatport.
Okay, fantastic. I will, again, make sure to link all those in the show notes page, and I sincerely appreciate your time today.
Thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time for this.
Thank you so much for listening. I'll have links for everything in the show notes, so head over to producerlifepodcast.com and look for episode 94. If you're enjoying this podcast, please leave a rating and review wherever you're listening. That would be a huge help. And as always, until next week, this is the House Ninja reminding you to be somebody's hero today.